charge of Enugu State. He's a member of Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, not just member by membership, member in state of MNIPR, MNISMA title carry. And then the police public relations officer, SP Daniel.
All right.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I don't have so much time, and I've been told to talk about something I know could take 1 month to talk about. It's an endless conversation. It's not one you can finish in just 10, 20, 30 years. In fact, what I've prepared here can be a full semester coursework if you pick it item by item and develop it that way. But I'll try as much as possible within the very short period of time to run through this thing and then help us understand better what it's all about. And interestingly, too, not just because I'm here practically in the field for about 5-6 years now, but I've been a victim of fake news. I know how it all started from day one, especially the way we see it in Nigeria today. We all know the greatness of all fake news and the impact which is very, very alive in our thinking, except for the fact that because most of us are short memories. This part of the world, people don't easily remember yesterday. We're only interested in what is happening today, what today or tomorrow life will be. I remember in 2020 that there was NSAS. Well, we remember very well that yes, even very verifiable and in some other instances unverified fact evidence available to people that there's something of police brutality, there's something of police misconduct and all of that. But the immediate thing that gave rise to the NSAS protest that was hijacked, made to become very violent the way we know it historically today, was never what actually happened. It was the fake news. So when we go back to that memory, then we begin to realize that we've been through a whole lot in this part of the country. The past, yes, the aftermath of the NSAS through today, even up to this moment, one thing that seems to have tried so much in this part of the country is fake news. You know, some of us there, by the time we had the whole time, it was through certain consciousness. If they are awakened by the fact that both of us have tried on fake news, we have held on to certain opinions, we have held on to certain ideas, so much so that you won't believe yourself when you really get to the point that your eyes are fully open to realize that some of those things looking so real are in actual sense very, very unreal. Once those eyes are open, you realize that we've been in a very terrible times. And as a matter of fact, like he pointed out, thank God himself is still very conscious of the fact that that was what actually, I'm sure, triggered the consciousness in him to say, let's have a conversation around this. And to be honest, this is one conversation that we are not having in this country. People don't talk about fake news. It looks very difficult as even those of us who, the PRO persons who are in the field, particularly for us within the security sector and the police of all institutions. I know mostly what we do is crisis communication. Because what you called me for was a crisis situation. Whether it's strategic or at the core of police PROship is crisis communication. And I do that like every minute. In fact, as I'm here, I have managed it. As I was driving here, somebody called me. It was a crisis situation. That from DP is not picking. I don't know what that DP is. I'm your partner and I know. I called the DP. DP was sounding like who never even knew somebody called. So I'm driving in here. That was the last call I made here. So when I called the DP, I said, this is our partner, a friend and all of that. He said, I send the person. He never sounded like. Larry was like, I tried calling this person, it's not picking. Everybody say he doesn't want to talk to anybody. I said, DPO. He said, yes, I called him and he said, the way himself sounded, you just know that he's not aware that such person made any attempts to call you. So crisis communication is largely what we do. So without taking much of our times, like he has mentioned, I've been standing with the responsibility of briefly talking to us on policing and fake news in times of insecurity. Interestingly, I did a short course and I got a certificate. whether yearly network or something. I just stumbled on that thing. I decided to spend some time, a couple of days, to do that thing on understanding and countering disinformation. In other words, fake news. And as part of my studies in my doctoral MSc, current doctoral studies, I did something on communication development. Those of us in development studies will understand. So you just know that the bulk of what we are doing here, and practically every day, my heart always tends to do it. Sometimes it's just that the Spirit of God is alive enough. Some of us, before they break down every day. Because at the point is, the more you try to dissuade people to make them understand that this thing is not as... I know how he sounded when he called me. Yeah, I rather became panicked. Not because something has happened, I became panicked. That's why I asked him, who told you? Is he a professor? Then you can begin to see how this thing can run. If a professor would not take one moment to think around the information available to him, he pushed it out. What if he was somebody who couldn't reach me? He could have run with that information, or who couldn't also think around it. He will run with this same information to the next person. And the thing keeps going that way. And then we'll keep struggling with ourselves. So having said that, this is just like a little background. The content of this thing is a little huge, but I'll run through it. I'll be looking at, first we start off with what is fake news in the first sense of it. Look at types of fake news. Three major types of disinformation, malinformation. There could be others, but these three are very important. We'll look at cognitive biases fueling fake news. There are certain biases, certain perceptions inherent in the minds of most of us that sometimes when this thing comes, we are left with no option but to take them the way they come, because in your subconscious there are some opinion, some perception, some sentiment existing that it is difficult to now begin to even look at this information differently. The man sending you was the same time we are being told that people are being kidnapped, children are being kidnapped in Oyo State, right? Teachers, beheaded and all of that. So anything coming around such subjects automatically will trigger this level of consciousness. Mind you, I had debunked about 2 different scenarios of similar case. In fact, immediately after when I started preparing a debunking press statement, not press release, press statement now. Because I'm reacting, I'm not giving you the information. I know there is a difference between press release and press statement. So I started preparing one. At the same time, I didn't even know that the same thing was happening in Nsukka, Okuji area, in a school too. In fact, that was the one somebody got video and put. So we saw children around it. Before then, I had debunked one that Fulani herdsmen are killing and dumping people along Ogu Junction. I'm only telling you about recent things. You look at those videos abroad. If you're not careful, it looks like it's seen. Yes, there was a situation like that, but totally different from what was being portrayed. And that had happened months back. I don't know if we get it. So look at those cognitive biases fueling fake news. What are those pre-existing conception, perception, opinion, sentiment in the minds of people that when some of these things comes, you have no choice but to run with them? I'll look at very briefly tools used in propagating fake news. We know social media as the major tool. But and somebody told me, I am the teacher here. Yes, I used to be a teacher though. So in our late, when common man sense, what do you mean is
unverified information that is being circulated through the media, social media, more especially social media. Because when you talk of television or radio, you can verify information before you push it out to the public. So it's usually social media that they used to circulate it, or one-on-one
basically unverified
information. Yes.
Without, okay, any other attempt?
Happy to see you.
Thank you, sir.
And also thank you for all of you. Worked for quite a long time. We have been talking about fake news. And the one thing for the journalists, sometimes they go for maybe eyewitness account without proper investigation. And when they go for eyewitness account without proper investigation, You may be reporting what you don't know. And in the end, it amounts to what? Fake news. Most of the time, today, some of the news that come from outside the country about one organization or the other, maybe within regional issue or any other issue. We are not there. And since we are not there, we don't want to call people within that environment and find out whether this news we got from US or any other thing is real news or not. And because of that, it turns to be what? Fake news. You can see the exact. Another area that we most often, some of the fake news may come during crisis situation. Some of the fake news may come around where we are enjoying ourselves. And we look, some people are running. There was a time I was in the suit, and people were shooting from another location, and people were running. And one person just advised me, I should not run before I run. Let me look first of all where, and have now seen where the bullet comes from. And I told some of my colleagues, this is where the bullet comes from, and because of that, we should not run through that way. We should go through. Then, but because of maybe something like not being able to comport ourselves, not being able to at least look before we leave, we give the wrong direction to where the bullet was. So let me end up here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. But there's something people have said here that I actually want you to also see the other way around. She said mostly social media. You see, for journalists, unverified, they didn't properly investigate. Maybe just an witness account, which the person would have spoken out of whatever excitement that exists in the person's head. And in most instances or most cases, you run with that thing, the account the person has given to you. You realize that you're only ending up with something of fake news. Consciously, you may not know. Now, it's not just about social media, even the mainstream media. Traditional media. You recall, let's say we're not conscious to recall, that Donald Trump sued BBC.
Yes.
For taking just a part of a full interview and putting it out there. How would you not want to trust BBC for that information? No, just how wouldn't you want to do that? So, and she said unverified. Now, that is why I mentioned the three major types of fake news. Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. They are in gradation. Misinformation, which I will explain a little later. You could just share that information, not because intent. You know, in law, a criminal act becomes complete if 50 elements are present. What we refer to as mens rea and octus reus. Mens rea is the mental faculty, the intention, how you have thought about that thing, the motivation you have for that thing. Why I want to steal this phone is because maybe I'm hungry. I have calculated and agreed in my mind that I need to steal this phone. I have the intention to steal is there. But octus reus will be an actual perfection that I have carried out that intention. That makes crime complete. If the man only thought to steal and eventually did not steal, it has not happened. Intent and actions must be there for it to be full. Now, let's run very quickly. Fake news refers to false, misleading, manipulated, or fabricated information. Two things are involved now. Deliberately or unintentionally presented as factual news. There's deliberately and unintentionally. We've had instances where, particularly on messaging applications like WhatsApp, which is the most commonest we use, people just share this information. Not that the person has any intention. It doesn't have any ill feeling. It just felt, oh, this news is flying, let me send so that people will be cautious and that. It doesn't have any motive beyond just the fact that it needed to share. But the fact that that information is wrong, the intention whether to harm or not to harm that the person has, would now override the fact that this is a wrong information you're putting out. Now, the key thing about fake news is that it is designed to either deceive somebody, to mislead, to influence public opinion, to provoke emotions, or to cause confusion. These are basically the baseline of all of what fake news intends to achieve. And for us in this time, during the period of insecurity, you realize that fake news can intensify fear. Like what happened to when you called. Let me use the most recent experience. There are countless number of them that have handled, and even beyond Enugu here. I use NSAS as a practical example. It is meant to undermine public confidence. You remember that day? We sent a patrol team to that place. So there's another video that circulated, which I had issue with the DP. I say you shouldn't have. We're already in a kind of situation. Allow me to have the video. Let me make sense out of what you've recorded and know how best to communicate. So, kidnap one student, go teacher. No be agone the police the confidence you would have, even in our capacity to manage that thing, would have been punctured. Now it obstructs security operations, as far as you know, because it's in this same Enugu, if you remember, 1 2 years. I got working now. They have come during this whole sit-at-home thing. They are attacking in Ogbete. People in Ogbete are around. They tell you it's new market. They tell people. I think somebody died. I can't confirm it. I remember fully now because vehicles people were plunging, colliding with the other. And now, like she mentioned, fake news spreads rapidly through social media platforms, very commonly. Messaging applications, which in most instances are also social media platforms, WhatsApp, more important, blogs, and even traditional media, when the information is not properly verified, coming back to you. So we see the whole thing is a holistic thing. So let's just not narrow. We can be quick. See, I've had instances to have issues with some of my journalist friends. There is part of the cognitive biases you read, you realize that, okay, let me not take our time so much. Now I talked about types of fake news. I mentioned 3 of them. Disinformation, malinformation. I just want to go through the word I've prepared so that I won't take so much time there. Misinformation is false or inaccurate information. False or inaccurate information shared without the intention to deceive or cause harm. The person does not have the intention to deceive, like I explained earlier. It doesn't have the intention to cause harm. But that doesn't make that information accurate. It doesn't make that information the truth. It is false, it is inaccurate. But the intention there is not to cause harm, it is not to deceive anybody. Like the person genuinely called you. It's an information he has gotten. He doesn't know the source of the information. He doesn't know whether it's accurate or not, but he needed to just let the next person know. His intention was not to deceive you. The intention was not to cause you any harm, but was to raise a level of consciousness in you. The person sharing it often believes it is true. That was why you, beyond what he told you. In fact, he even told you, look out for your friend to call and know what the thing is all about. Which means he was suspicious of that information, but he couldn't hold it back. He needed to have a measure of confirmation. Let's take for example, I've explained now, a resident forward an unverified WhatsApp message claiming that terrorists are attacking a community, believing the message is a genuine public warning. I don't know if you get it. That particular information was shared and reshared. Many who shared it only shared it, well, like I said, based on the perception inherent already in that person, and thinking they needed to create a measure of public warning. So you put out that information, but that does not make the information accurate. It doesn't make it to be the truth, but you only feel or think it is what it is. So that is that about misinformation. Now, disinformation, on the other hand, is false information. False information, deliberately created and designated to deceive, to manipulate public opinion, or achieve political, criminal, or ideological objectives. So this one is an intentional thing. It is not a half and half thing. That is when people sit down and craft it, especially in this age where our human intelligence is fast being replaced by artificial intelligence. Deep fakes, of which most of those explanations are contained here. Somebody generate anything, you can make this bottle turn to a knife. And then you design it in such a way that it's coming to come and, God forbid, chop off the head of everybody here. And then we send it to you and you begin to panic. Like the video circulating, the picture like I told us, the one at Obu Junction. I have been in Enugu here where I know people lifted a video from my after basic forensic investigation. I realized that that incident was never in Nigeria. Many of them in that manner. It never happened anywhere around here. But because those locations have similar environment, the ecosystem there, the environment looks everything like what you could find here. You were told Nana Babu the mud in Enugu so carried, and everybody was running that skelter. So there's a deliberate intention. It is not something you do unintentionally, it's something that somebody sits down to think through, to plan. For example, criminals circulate a fabricated report alleging that security personnel, for instance, abandoned a particular highway. I have had that several in Enugu to discourage travel, great panic or diverse security attention. I used to think Suka Road. So what will happen? But I've had instances where they will show you a part of the video showing that as I went that incident happened, there was no police, there was no army, there was nobody on that road. But you also will realize that even if the incident had happened, there were people there. Peradventure, it was a snappy operation, criminal operation that you couldn't respond to it immediately and the thing would have happened. But the next moment, the person will take the part of the video that will help the person propagate the false narrative the person has. And it becomes difficult for you not to agree with the person. If you say policemen brutalize somebody, in most instances, it's not the policeman that has brutalized them. The video, the picture you see is where the thing has happened against the policeman. Now I've talked about misinformation. Let's move to the third one. Malinformation. Malinformation in this sense is a genuine information. It's genuine though, it's accurate though. There's nothing wrong with the information that has been shared. But such genuine information, a piece of information is deliberately shared out of context or at the wrong time to cause harm to individuals, organization, or national security. It is not a wrong information. It's like when somebody puts out an operational order, the police or any other security agency want to use and fight certain crime. Let's use this one more practically. In cases of kidnapping, if I have my way, I will be telling people this thing. Sometimes the kidnappers, it's not a targeted kidnapping. They just came in opportunist one and they came out to actually kidnap and they saw people and were able to kidnap somebody. They never had in mind that His Royal Highness is going to pass that road. So it's not targeted. Now when you kidnap, for instance, God forbid, somebody of that level of a high caliber individual take it to the bush, they may not know that that is the nature of the person they have kidnapped, because for the kidnapper, everybody has value. If it is not your immediate account, your friends and the other person can contribute for whatever to happen. So now, you could have the genuine information of the fact that somebody has been kidnapped. But the very moment you begin to circulate those information, possibly there's an operation ongoing. Maybe who told you these guys are not also on this media platform? Of course, we have seen in recent time when you see the so-called bandits coming on TikTok and all on that platform to advertise themselves for what we've been told and we've seen in some videos. Share money as you've had and read. Do you get it? So when you put out such information, it may be accurate that that kidnapping has happened. You're also adding the detail of who has been kidnapped. This guy who are in the bush now already know, this person we're holding is actually a big fish. So let's assume that they would have made a demand of 1 million, they decided to make 100 million naira. Let's assume that the police, every other person was preparing an operation, knowing where and how to coordinate. These people are already alarmed that it's public knowledge and they know there's no way that the police or any other person would not want to do it. So for malinformation, it's accurate, it's a real information. But the context of concrete information is shared. When it is shared, how and why it is shared becomes a problem. Because it will end up causing more problem than necessary. So we have looked at those three types of fake news in this class now. I'm sure our eyes will be open. It's something you can always study further and read up and know better. Cognitive biases fueling fake news. What are those biases? There are too many biases. In the other hand, we call them fallacies and all of that. For those of us who still remember our logic, philosophy and logic and all of that, or lawyers who know better. There are biases, like I said, perception, sentiment. that people build in their subconscious. That when certain things begin to happen, it is difficult to think through and view things a little differently. Now I'm going to say this. Fake news thrives 101% because of predictable psychological tendencies that influence how people process information. There are predictable psychological tendencies. If a man who has been exposed to certain circumstances, you bring certain information to that person, automatically we just believe that it's the same thing. It's part of some of the biases we will see here. It's the same thing. Like a man who has been exposed to a kidnapping situation, and then you bring a story trying to describe the experience he had had. So what do you think he will do? Naturally, he will say, no, it was not the same way. And it becomes difficult. He may be forced, but because of his experience, that will begin to work that way. Now, the first bias we'll look at is what we refer to as confirmation bias. This is a bias that explains the fact that people readily believe information that supports their existing beliefs while rejecting contradictory evidence. People who have this manner of bias, they readily want to believe everything that supports the pre-existing belief in their mind. They will do everything to reject any other thing, no matter the evidence you bring to them to tell them that they have or see. They will never agree with you. A practical example, I wish I don't go this way, but I will go because it's something that is playing out in our country. The example I say, a person convinced that a particular ethnic group is responsible for violent crime immediately accepts and shares an unverified story implicating members of that group. It is happening today. Once you just say, Fulani heads, and everybody runs with it. Once you just hear one report that, because you believe that Igbo people like money so much, they tell you they did this thing in Nigeria, in America, you want to read and be sure, no Igbo. So any other evidence you're bringing, the natural tendency is that because there is this pre-existing thought, the bias in you just need something to confirm what is already existing in your subconscious. So that is that for confirmation bias. There's another one known as selective exposure. Selective exposure. Selective exposure is a situation where people prefer information sources that reinforces their existing opinions and avoid opposing viewpoints. This one has to do with sources. Like I said, if you go back to the US election, if you hate Donald Trump, you wanted to watch CNN. I said you didn't understand very well. If you don't like Donald Trump, you wanted to watch CNN because everything documentary that CNN was doing is a source of information, and you know that this man, anything they tell you about this man, 101% is the accurate truth, so you want to watch CNN. So even if you bring any other report from any other way, it is difficult for the person. So there's this selective exposure the person has to certain issues, to certain ideas, to certain information, that even when you're bringing something in the contrary, he doesn't want to believe that. Someone, for instance, follows only social media accounts aligned with their political or ideological views. In the Southeast, when the NIPR issue was happening, people did that. Let's tell ourselves the story, the truth. Daniel suffer. People did that. So anything in the contrary is a lie. Even when bouts were sending people messages, that wasn't what they were interested in. But they were saying, as far as it's coming from here, this increases exposure to one-sided or false narrative because you follow that media platform, social media, mainstream or traditional, your exposure to one-sided or false narratives becomes very high. You don't want to think of any other thing because that source says so. There's also motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning explains the fact that people interpret information to support conclusions they already want to believe. I don't know if you got it. Motivated reasoning is that people support any information that is put out to support the conclusion they already want to believe. People most times prepare their mind. Like I said, if you deal with a man who already have, like in the Southeast, where the ideological thing, whether you care or not, is child here, if it's an Igbo child, will grow up to believe that he's a Biafra person. So there's nothing else you're going to tell this child that would make sense. So any other thing you bring to him, any information you bring to him that aligns with that Biafra thing, he runs with it. Whether it's accurate, whether it's not accurate, he will run with it. For example, even after security agencies clarified that the viral video report insisting it depicts events in Nigeria because it supports their narrative. I gave us an instance of the one that happened along Okin Soka Road where the video was generated. I think I found that I traced that video to the southeast, an eastern part of Africa or somewhere. There is this place that have almost the same thing. Both the people there, you think you're seeing an average Igbo man. Do you get it? So because when we even are saying I've debunked this thing over, it currently is happening, debunked, and then you look at it as though what is happening, you now begin to see that there's a level of motivated reasoning in the subconscious that that person just believes that this is what he believes, and any conclusion based on information available that is not aligning with that thing is false. We have belief perseverance. Belief perseverance. People continue believing false information despite credible evidence disproving it. It's still almost the same thing as the motivated reasoning. There's no way you can convince this person. He will continue believing the false information. People will continue believing false information despite credible evidence, no matter what the PR or anybody is saying. Yeah, that one is what it is. Go to hell and come back. For instance, a rumor of an impending attack continues circulating days after security agencies officially debunked it. The example you gave. Only recently where everybody had on the countdown. But go to the minds of many people, they think it is what it is. There's this one that is very important. This one is the one that sticks in my head very well. We call it petition effect or illusory truth effect. Let me tell you how this one works. I will touch you expert. Some of the things the people did that led and sustained sit at home in the southeast was as a result of this one, beyond any other one. You see repetitive bias? You know when you come to this platform and I do the same story. You get a punch, you go back. Everywhere is tattooed around the corner. So what's the you are left with no option but to believe that they have is you.
They all can be lying.
Thank you. They all can be lying. So example of this is that same fake news story allowed is repeatedly shared across WhatsApp group until many people accept it as fact simply because they have seen it many times. It cannot be like, I even saw this in Sahara reporter carried it. Punch carried it. This radio, this TV is saying it. That is why verification is very important. And there's in-group bias, in-group bias. This one says that people are more likely to trust information originating from members of their ethnic group, ethnic, religious, political, or social group. People are more prone to believing or trusting any information originating from members of the ethnic group, religious, political, or social group. Take for instance the information you gave. The professor's son was in that school. He has not, maybe he hasn't seen, he was also told. But for the fact that my son is in that Igbo thing and he's telling me, I just think locationally now, chances are that it's very possible that it's same thing. When your brother that is an Igbo man tells you no, anyway, agenda, Islamization agenda, people and kill everybody in India. He brings certain facts to prove you wrong, to prove that because you're of that group and you know, oh, this my brother loves me, doesn't want it to happen to me. The chances are that you won't agree with that person. So there's this sense of being group bias that people also exhibit. There's authority bias. People tend to believe information because it comes from influential individuals or perceived authorities. That's the more reason why I wouldn't give out certain information. If you hear that the PR will say, don't you want to believe it? I am an authority in that sense. So you find it difficult to say no to whatever I say because you believe I am an authority or perceived to be an authority. So whatever I'm telling you is what it is. There's also availability heuristic. People judge the likelihood of an event based on how easily similar example comes to mind. if you have been watching certain movie where kidnapping happens, and somebody finds a picture by way of fake news of a kidnapping incident, your mind will easily go back to that video you have watched. That scene you have seen played out somewhere. You just, I mean, to give an instance like that, you do one-on-one, you just want to believe that there's also emotional reason. Strong emotion reduce critical thinking and encourage impulsive sharing. Most of us can be very emotionally strong. When you see those videos where those child are being flogged, some of even the Oyo one, people also brought videos that are not related to that thing. As you're seeing those children being flogged, there's this one they do scan and say they were born in. When in actual sense it's not the same people. So chances are that you will wrong with that idea. Because there's emotion, it's an emotive thing. You've been so charged emotionally to believe that this is what it is, even when it is not. There's negative bias. People pay greater attention to alarming and sensational stories than positive or neutral information. That is happening now currently in Nigeria. Negative bias. We pay attention to negative. In fact, every day most of us wake up to look out for negative information, not positive ones, not neutral ones. Because over time, so much of information, what you might refer to as information overload in our head. So chances are that people just wake up, they want to hear one story of one bad thing that has happened. And the media generally is not helping us. They don't see the good side, it's the bad side they want to see all the time. And now, I'll summarize with this thing about 3 others. You know, when you talk about social media, I've had calls to actually puncture posts that I know are false. If one thing I've been doing recently is that before an AB post here, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, once I digest and distract that you're saying a fake news, I don't need to do a press news, I'll puncture it, I'll come to your comment section and post my own counter information there. In fact, one lady started begging me. He came and said, Enugu is not safe. We had one experience, they took you through CIC, they did this. I read this story, I said, and now asked a very simple question. Did you report this matter first to the police? Are you the only one that has this experience? He was giving narrative, but when I punctured, he came back into my DM. And he started begging me. I said, you won't do that kind of thing because you want to chase clout on social media. You want to build traffic, people have to come so that your monetization will serve you. You think you can just put out anything? So, as part of the biases, there are 3 key things, especially when people are chasing clout on social media that is happening. The first is what we refer to as proof and the bandwagon effect. Proof as in P-O-R-O-R-O-F and the bandwagon effect is a bias. I'm aligning this is more to social media and the fact that monetization is not helping people. People want to put out all manner of fake news simply because by so doing, they will build traffic, people will come there, they will have huge followership, comment will be high, people will need to be monetized, and they create a feedback loop that validates their behavior. So they want to just share this thing because they know it will generate the kind of traffic they want. We also have behavioral self-enhancement bias. It's another form of cloud chasing bias that people use on social media. Now here people share highly provocative or exclusive news because they want to appear knowledgeable, edgy, or the first to break a story to their peers. You know there are people like that.
Yes.
They just want to be the one, as Anna Ipukoye, they just want to take that story first. Which is the mindset of every other media, whether traditional or new media. You just want to be the one, as Anna African, let it be that originated from one. So whether or not, particularly in the social media now, there are people like that. There's also this part of the cloud chasing biases, driving fake news. There's this one we call the news finds me perception. The news finds me. The news finds me perception. They feel users, because they feel you're already used to them, that most times you don't, whatever they tell you is what you will take. The news they prefer will naturally find you because they have said now. If you post bomb, the next moment, a very dark man, anybody posts now, the next moment it will fly. Because he's the one like an authority, his news will always find somebody. Exactly, he's a regular person over time, an algorithm and all of that is there. So people will naturally want to, himself will naturally want to post, whether or not he has verified, authenticated, be sure that that has been properly vetted or not, he just want to put it out. Because he knows, like breaking the news too, his news will always find somebody. Once the news finds a person, he runs. Whether it's fake or not fake, it's not what is bothered to consider. So that is that about these biases. Now, we have tools used in propagating fake news. I'm not going to run for want of time. Fake news spreads through a combination of digital technologies, communication platforms, and content manipulation tools. These three things are very key. Digital technologies, have so many digital technologies, we have communication platform, we have content manipulation. The most common include one, social media platform like we all agree here. These are the primary channels for rapid dissemination because of their large user base and ease of sharing. Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and so on and so forth. How are they used? Viral posts, manipulated videos, fake live broadcasts, misleading captions, and coordinated sharings are shared on this platform. And before you say Jack, we run with it. Messaging applications, they are also social media platforms, but it's good we know that you can use Facebook the same way you use your WhatsApp. In fact, we used to call WhatsApp what we call the dark media. It's dark media for what I learned simply because you cannot have a Facebook for a WhatsApp for now until you use your phone number. Sure, except you're creating a group of, but you would have been on that platform using your contacts first. But on Facebook, you just might need your email or whatever, and any other person can find you, and you cannot have somebody on WhatsApp until you have the person's number. Except you're in one group, and the team number that is bringing all of you there.
That's about to change.
Yes, yes.
WhatsApp.
Yes, there are username. Yes, gradually it's moving a little bit to becoming a normal social media platform. Now, end-to-end encryption and private group chat make this messaging application difficult to manage. You know, it's an end-to-end encrypted thing. It's between the conversation is largely between you or the group where we find ourselves. Somebody can stumble on your post on Facebook or not on WhatsApp, except it is shared to a group where you are. It could just be your post, your optimization, and all of that. Somebody will see you. This is this person that posted this. Messages are forwarded, voice note, fabricated alert, and anonymous broadcast. There is this debunking I did. May so continue to rest in peace. During my immediate past commissioner of police, whom we know, I'm sure we are aware that it's late now,
Yes.
that became AIGs online. There's this audio that we know, it was this picture. It's a WhatsApp voice note, but they use this picture to design that content. And the person was talking about how WhatsApp was going to close in so day and so time. How WhatsApp is now collecting people information and all of that. People should be careful that they should do this, they should do that. People started sharing, like even including professors and PhD holders shared it to me. Then I asked that person, I asked one of them, of which it was part of the content of the press statement I issued on that. I said, is it possible for WhatsApp, an international multinational organization that has coordinated means of communication to want to tell you something about their group? They will now use somebody and use Commissioner of Police Enugu State face to tell you. I mean, these were some of the logic. I play logic around things. Before I take anything, I'll play so many logic. Do odd one on one. If it aligns, then I might want to agree. Because I'm assuming, how would Meta, as big as Meta is, it won't be one egotic voice that you now use and circulate an information that they want to talk to their users. Now you go use CP, Commissioner of Police, not IG, not the head of Interpol.
When they can drop it on the platform by themselves.
But people still run with the idea. The subconscious you are not even queried some of these things. So we have fake news websites and blogs. There are too many of them, just too many to mention. The greatest of them all artificial intelligence tools. I mean, this is the era where it is difficult to differentiate A from B. So in this age of AI, generative AI can create highly convincing but false content. It's so bad and it's so huge. Examples include AI-generated articles, synthetic voices like I've mentioned, AI-generated images, AI generated videos, which is deep fake. You do this and you circulate it and everybody begins to run. There's also the deep fake technology. Now, deep fake technology simply is a situation where you see AI is used to manipulate images. Like what happened to, I gave the example here, very dark man. His video was taken, an audio that sounds like his own was implanted, and you see even the reading of the lips, it's difficult for you to think that there's nothing that they say that's it. So individuals appear to say or do things they never did. It's deepfake. Security implication, particularly of deepfake, is that it can undermine trust, incite unrest, or damage reputation. So this is how deepfake can be very terrible AI generation. We have image and video editing software, Adobe can do magic, Premiere Pro, CapCut, InShot, GoGoTigo, even TikTok. On this platform, you can get effects that will make the unreal thing look very real. There's the BOUT network. I told us about BOUT. BOUT is very dangerous. Automated accounts. I mean, when you talk about repetitive bias and all of those illusory truth effects, you now realize that most times BOUT is the easiest way to propagate them. Because you have this automated responses chat, and you go to your bank, some of them you do this transaction and then the BOUT is responding to you, although as though it's accurate. They use these things to spread multiple account created, BOUT account created, and they can spread things all over, and it becomes a problem. There's also the fake or anonymous social media account. That one is on its own. Clickbait website, you're giving a phishing link or one link, and you begin to think it's all of what it is. We have emails, we have bulk SMS sent to people. Our phone, man, they change no ways, but it's fake. These tools are that effective because one, they are very fast and they have instant global reach. As Donald Trump is reaching you and I here immediately. It is very low. The cost is very low. Content creation, you can see them and use even the details of an Android phone and put out something that everybody can see. Emotional and sensational content, like I mentioned earlier, spreads faster than factual information. And blog videos often amplify highly engaging posts regardless of their accuracy. So no matter how accurate it is, because the algorithm is there, picking the same kind of information, people are talking about it, it becomes so common and then you begin to find it everywhere. Now there's something I need us to understand. These tools are generally neutral technologies. All of the social media coming by themselves, they are okay, there's nothing wrong with them. But what is actually wrong is the way people deploy them to not only generate, but to spread false and misleading information. See, what are the implications of fake news for policing during insecurity? Now, fake news can do some of the things I'll just summarize them very quickly. It can trigger public panic and unnecessary fear. True or false? True. That is the key thing we suffer. It can undermine public confidence in security institutions. True or false? We are suffering that. It can incite violence and communal conflict. NSAS is one of the most memorable example. Even in our various community, people are killing themselves because of fake news. It's happening. It diverts scarce security resources to false incidents. Our people had to start running down to that. Now, where were we born? I also included man-hour wastage. The time that man would have used probably is preparing an investigation report. He has spent it to run down to that place. That is man-hour wastage. It damaged the reputation of individuals and institutions. So many people's reputation and their everything institution have been damaged. We have instances where the police, other people, security agencies, false narrative, fake news have been generated against them, and eventually we begin to view them as though what that fake news is carrying is what it is. It also strengthens criminal and terrorist propaganda. There are people, criminals are using these things. And like I gave us an instance where you put out a fake news, they want it. They want everybody to believe that there's a chaotic situation. Because if it is bad for them, the atmosphere is a charged or tense one, it's easier. Anybody can become an easy prey. It obstructs intelligence gathering and community policing. Very important. These are some of the things you are suffering. How do you now go back to that village and have somebody that wants to genuinely tell you something? when there's an information circulating that they should run. We've had instances where communities have been sacked, not by physical people who have come to attack them, but by fake news. Now, what are the strategies for countering fake news? Very important. For those of us in police and security agencies, I'll mention some of them very quickly. We must begin to learn how to disseminate timely, accurate, and transparent information. And that's what I always try to do. But sometimes you realize your handicap, no matter how hard you try. With only one person, that one will not spread the ends of heaven. The one will be struggling to catch up with them. But it has to be timely, it has to be accurate. That's why I said I wouldn't be quick to rush to respond. I want to be shocked. I have all of the information, and when I put it out, I give you the evidence that fake news never gave to you. To at least help counter it. Now we have to also, for us, the police and other people, have to strengthen strategic communication and public relations. Part of it is not just because we are PR people. This class is exposing some of us to what we may not have been conscious of. So our communication must be strategic. Sometimes I don't wait until it happens, I begin to disabuse your mind for you to know that, oh, this thing is possible. So that when you begin to see some of those things, see this one now, how the whole thing happen everywhere, nothing. Okay. Lest I forget, UNN was even part of the story.
Yes.
The public, verifying information before sharing is very important. You would have quickly run with that information, but you needed to call me. But the only challenge I have with my media friends is that most times they want to break news, even when it is not so. And you know one thing about journalists, wonderful thing, is that my response is the last paragraph. And an average Nigerian don't read past headline. I whatever the highlight tell them, that's why if you listen to newspaper review on radio, you will weep for our country. People are interested. You see people killing themselves on one headline. Headline is meant to draw your attention now. And if you see attention first, but just go beyond the headline, read. Read to the bottom. That is where the PR or whoever has responded to that thing. So
where the however is.
However, but that is very difficult. Now, for the public, we also have to rely on credible and official sources as much as possible. We live in very difficult times where you don't even know the authoritative official sources that are credible again. We need to cross-check reports with multiple reliable outlets. Our chief here talked about investigating beyond just the eyewitness account. Do a little investigation. Analyze this. Just even think about the possibility of some of these things you're being told. Avoid forwarding emotionally charged messages without verification, whether you like it or not, like the picture of the kidnapping in Oyo State. Somebody is already down. He wants to believe it is what it is. But when you take away emotions, throw logic at those things, you will realize that somewhere, somehow, you will be able to dictate whether or not such information is fake. Report suspicious content to relevant authority. He did that. Thank God you are here. You are my elementary example. He reported to me. I wasn't even aware of that before that. Because in my mind, I know I didn't have any report. There was no internally. I was busy with other things I was doing in the office. And when you called, that was when I became alarmed. I started calling. In fact, I called the DP of that. I said, what is happening? That was when he now told me, he's hearing the same thing now too, but he knows there's nothing happening yet. Like he's even going down there. What if he never reported to me? Maybe I would not have timely and accurately responded to that thing and then douse the tension as much as possible. Let me begin to conclude. In contemporary security environment, policing extends beyond combating physical crime. Because I agree with this. In this time, in this time and in this age, policing extends beyond combating physical crime. It goes to managing the information environment, because we are not just fighting the criminal that have stolen, we're also fighting the fake news that can even create more security situations for us than the physical criminal person that wants to create that security. Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation can undermine public safety as effectively as conventional criminal activities. So the two are now, they are like a hydra-headed monsters that we must begin to deal with. Beyond just be fighting the physical, criminal and criminal activities. Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation is creating more problems than necessary for us. And as also as a matter of fact, like I've also exposed us to understanding the psychological biases that make fake news persuasive, the tools and how they are used to propagate fake news will enable both us, the security, those within the security sphere, and the public to build resilience against information manipulation. When we understand how these tools work, when we have firm knowledge of some of these biases, when the consciousness in you is there to also begin to understand that this is confirmation bias, this is motivated exposure, this is reasoning, this is that. The consciousness will be high for you to begin to understand that something of fake news is coming my way, and you begin to fight it off. Media literacy is actually very important. I think that is part of what I'm doing here now. And as a matter of fact, sustained public trust is something we cannot play with. So that it won't just be, the police who goes, we need to continue to build this trust. And as a matter of fact, it's not a one-man thing. It's something that requires collective effort. Until we begin to see that security is not just for the security agencies. It's something that behoves on every individual to play a role. Today, my CP have had several town hall meetings. They also engaged the leadership of traditional rulers in the state. You see traditional rulers telling you how it is drug abuse in their communities, literally killing every young person. And they want the police to intervene. But nobody has asked the question, what is happening to parenting? What have we even done as custodians of law and order in our immediate environment? What environment are these children exposed to? What is pushing them to do drugs? What is pushing them? And we've done our little best at that level and leave the rest to the police to police the outcomes of this attitude. So we are not just policing outcomes these days, we are actually policing the inputs too, which is not what it should be. Because if parents are doing the needful, members of society, communities are doing the needful, it will be very minimal for us to begin to police certain criminal tendencies. Because if there are no inputs generating these tendencies, the outcome will not be that of crime. So this is some of the things. I'll begin to close this conversation with a very important quote from Pope Francis. He said, "The search for truth is the most radical antidote to the virus of falsehood." The search for truth is the most radical antidote to the virus of falsehood rather. So until you and I begin to consciously search for truth in every element of fake news, whether even if it is the truth, you want to be double sure. That is the only medicine. That is the only puncture. That is the only deflation we can throw at everything called falsehood. In this time and in this age, until that consciousness is there to search out for the truth, you're not quick to share because you're not sure. You're not quick to tell the next person because you're not sure. You want to be sure before you're sharing that information. Repetitive bias can play so many things on you, but it's also important that beyond you being told that there has been a punch, what's in a CNN, what's in a Al Jazeera, what's in a Arise TV calls, if the consciousness is not there for you to just go beyond the face value of what you've told, to search out for the truth and be sure that that thing is the truth and nothing but the truth, then we'll continue to have the kind of problem we have arising from fake news. So that's what I want to say. Thank you. And I strongly believe that with this little point
not little at all.
Thank you so much.